Alright guys, bringing you a review of the Catz MLG Pro Circuit controller for the Xbox 360, but the PS3 one's pretty much exactly the same thing, so it's the same controller, so don't worry, it's pretty much the same review on both. But anyway, Mr. Ken Burton very kindly sent me this over. You know, Catz sent him it out first, and he doesn't feel that he is worthy of reviewing this controller. You know, he says it's too MLG for him, you know, because he's not exactly the best gamer in the world. No offense, Burton. But so let's get into this, guys. So we'll start with the more MLG side of it, and then the potential that I see in this controller. So the first thing is they claim to have defeated the slow turn issues with Xbox 360 controllers and have consistent analog sticks. Personally, I had this problem a lot in the controller I was using before this. It was quite an old controller. It was a bit worn out, and it was really unresponsive at times. And I have to give it to them, you know, this controller does feel very reactive, very slick when you're on the analog sticks. So I'm really happy about that. And another really quite MLG feature to this controller is the ability to add or remove weights. You actually get a little pack with two 35-gram weights in it, and you can take them or remove them. I personally, for two reasons, don't use the weights. First of all, I prefer the weight of it without them. But secondly, if you don't have the weights, you get to have a flat back. Whereas if the weights are on it, there's a bulge on it. So I find it more comfortable for my fingers on the flat back without the weights. But nonetheless, very cool little feature, and I'm sure a lot of people like that and use the weights. Now let's talk about the comfortability of this controller. This is something that really worried me when I got this controller. You know, something that always worries me and puts me off buying non-official Xbox 360 Microsoft controllers. And the reason for that, a lot of these other controllers don't look very comfortable. You know, I've been using the Microsoft one for, 6 years now, and I'm used to it. And I have to say, guys, you know, this controller isn't more comfortable than it, but it's just as comfortable on it. And you can't really get any more comfortable than the actual Microsoft controller, especially because you're so used to it. But this feels just like the Xbox controller in your hand. The only difference is there is, you know, the select and the home button and the start button are a bit higher up. That takes a bit of getting used to, but apart from that, it's the same thing. One thing that actually is more comfortable is it's got almost like a rubber sort of matte type finish to the bottom and sides of it, so it's quite grippy in your hand, so I quite like that feature. Now let's move on to arguably the biggest selling point of this controller, and probably the biggest marketed point of this controller, and that is the ability to change the analog sticks in the D-pad. Now personally, I stick with the Xbox analog positions and the Xbox analog sticks. You know, the invent ones are the ones that dip down, rather than the PS3 ones that are almost, is it concave? I'm just going to call them dome ones because I don't know the technical words. But yeah, I keep the default Xbox sticks in the default positions, but I did switch the Xbox D-pad out with the PS3 D-pad because I think the PS3 D-pad is better. I've always thought that. I don't like the Xbox one. I don't like the buttons being joined together. I like the way the PS3 one has separate buttons. But the big potential I see with this controller, guys, is if you look at the PS3 one and you look at the Xbox controller, it is the exact same shell. The only difference is if you arrange the analog sticks the same way on both. The only difference is the buttons are, you know, A and B instead of X and square. That's the difference. That's the only one. So the potential I see with this controller, obviously the home button's different as well, but the potential I see with this controller is people that are, you know, PS3 gamers or Xbox gamers, and like myself, are put off getting a different console, are playing on both consoles because you don't feel like you'd be comfortable with a PS3 controller, or you don't feel like you'd be comfortable with the Xbox controller. Well, you know, with this, if I ever get a PS3, I'm getting the PS3 controller because I can just stick the Xbox analogs in the Xbox analog positions and the same D-pad. I can basically have the same controller as I'm using on my Xbox on the PS3. And I think that's brilliant, I really do. Now, one step forward I would love to see, but I doubt it will ever happen, and that is a controller that works on both the Xbox and the PS3. I don't think it'll ever happen. Can it be done? Tell me in the comments below, I'm not sure. But if that could happen, it would save a lot of people a lot of money, and it would be really convenient. And I guarantee you, a lot of Xbox and PS3 gamers would buy that controller. But overall, guys, really impressed with the controller. You know, really responsive, really comfortable. And it's going to be really handy for me if I ever get a PS3. Anyway, guys, this has been Maxwell. This has been my review of the Catz MLG Pro Circuit controller for the Xbox 360. See you all later.